This is our video where we try to explain a little bit about the brain with OCD. And we're making it simple just for some information so you can educate your family, educate yourselves.
So you can understand it yourself if you're going through it too.
Yep. So like mentioned in the first video, don't be embarrassed. This is a physical thing, like somebody who has bad vision and wears glasses. It's just a biological issue in the brain. And what they say, the consensus today is that they used to think it was all from how you were raised or something that happened to you, but they found it's actually a physical thing they can see in the brain. It's genetic. It can be passed through. It's connected to genes. So you are born with this probability that you will have OCD because of this gene. How it manifests, what kind of OCD, what kind of fears, that actually happens based on what your environment, what triggers it, how old you are when things happen. We mentioned she was 11, between 11 and 13, and it's very common that a lot of it comes out during hormonal puberty, that it peaks and gets noticed. So your brain has 4 different areas to deal with thoughts. And a normal person will take this thought. First, you initiate a thought. Wow, it's cold out. I don't know if that's going to work out to be a good thought. That's my thought. It's cold out. 2, sort that thought. Do I need to do anything about that right now? Well, if I go out, I do. 3, act on it. I'm not going out now. I don't care. Or I am going out. I better go find my good coat. 4, file it away. I'm ready. I'm not worrying about it. It's not a thought that matters, so it's filed.
Or gets thrown away. It's the one that like sends it. It goes to the filing area, or the trash can is high. Envision it.
Yes. So there's these 4 areas. Now there's actually 4 medical terms. There's 4 spots in the brain that handle these things. I don't know all of them.
I'll be the model. Okay, picture it like these.
There you go. Now, they've done PET scans, which are even better than, depends on what study you're doing. They're imaging like CAT scans, but they're not. But they look at your brain and they use some kind of, I believe, sugar tracers, glucose or something. And they do the brain, people with OCD and people that don't have it. And they can see how it gets stuck in this cycle. It's stuck.
So instead of, in a normal process, it'll go through those 4 stages and then get filed away or put away. Instead of that with us, it gets stuck going through those 4 places, and it doesn't go into the filing or into the trash. It just goes back through the process. It goes back to the, what do I do about it? And starts over, and then it just keeps going and becomes more important the more you do that.
So, they don't know if it's a combination of a problem with these 4 areas or just one area. But the one area that they said in my studies could possibly be the cause, it's called the caudate nucleus. So one of those little spots is called the caudate nucleus, and that's where they see some issues with the PET scans. What this means for everybody is, 1, it's not your fault. It's not the parents' fault. It has nothing to do with what you ate during pregnancy, and it's not because you're a bad person. It's none of that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's something good to know. Is it's not your fault, and I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, you're supposed to talk, honey.
Okay. That's very important. It's just good to remember that, is it's not your fault. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything about it, because you can help it, but it's not your fault. It's a biological problem, and you're not crazy. It's just something that's happened to you, something that makes things spiral out of control, and you have to get that control back.
Some people that have Tourette's have OCD, the other way around. They go together sometimes. Not everybody that has OCD has Tourette's, but when you see somebody with Tourette's, do you think that it's their fault? You kind of know there's something physical, and they're related.
People have a stigma with the mind. Are always thinking like you're crazy, or it's your fault, or you're weird. But it's another biological, physical problem, just like anything else.
One of the things that the biological study of the brain does do is gives hope, because they can see that with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, the brain can be retrained. They can see it progress to get better.
You actually make new pathways. You make it go into the places it needs to go, or reroute it if you want to think about it like that. But you can retrain it, and I really do think that's true, because I can see my responses being different than they used to be, and it's an automatic thing. Like, I have retrained my brain to respond in this way.
It's a lot of work, but it is so worth it.
It's kind of cool if you stop to think about it. Like, I normally would be obsessed and afraid and terrified of the situation, and now I can handle it.
Yeah, talking about our OCD used to be very difficult.
Still a little stressful.
Yeah, and we're not saying, a person with OCD, always, we have birds, I forgot.
Sorry.
We have birds, you might hear them squawking in the background. A person with OCD will always have OCD. This can retrain your brain, but don't ever consider yourself, I don't know, you can maybe say you're cured.
It'll never go away. You'll always have that tendency to want to start back into that again. But you'll have times where your obsessions and your rituals will go away, but your OCD tendencies can stay.
The tendency for the thought to go.
Sometimes if I get scared or worried or anxious, I'm gonna mess up the video. Sometimes if I get scared or worried or anxious, I have this like little nibbling at my brain or tickling sensation or whatever, that it's like, you should do this. You should do the ritual you used to do a long time ago. Or you should be more worried about that. You should obsess over it. I mean, obviously it's not speaking to me, but it's like that feeling like, oh, I used to do this, and then I kind of catch myself, or like I automatically do it in my brain or whatever, and I know how to respond to that feeling now, because I can differentiate between what's a normal worry and what's an OCD worry. And I didn't used to be able to do that. So now, when something's an OCD worry, I can face it, or I can like stop it in its tracks from obsessing, which is, it's hard to imagine that if you have OCD, but it can happen. It's not good to try that right away though, because you can't just stop it right away, but once you learn how to do that, you can. But there's ways, and now that I know how to do that, like, I don't do rituals at all. I get anxious, but I have anxiety, so that's, it goes with it. It's just not the same. My anxiety is better. My obsessions are better. I really don't obsess over many things. I worry about normal things like college life and stuff, but if I do obsess, there's ways to handle it.
And so we talked about CBT. Another question people might have is, do they need medication? And there's a lot of different beliefs on that. Obviously, that's a very personal decision. And in our case, what we learned was that the medication, SSRIs or antidepressants, can help relieve some of the anxiety, can help calm that while you're dealing with this, and then you can make a decision later whether you need it or not.
Someone asked me this question, and I said, I took medicine because I was coming off of like a week-long anxiety attack. I needed to calm that down. You can't be at the highest level of anxiety to treat it, but so to calm that anxiety, you can or can't. It's hard to say. Some people can do it without medicine. I used the medicine. It helped me a lot to kind of stabilize the anxiety, the moods, and everything. Once I was at a more stable point, I did CBT. You have to do CBT. It will not go away if you don't do CBT.
That's our belief.
Yeah,
please take this as a disclaimer. We're saying from her
my experience.
So from now on, that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
But
some people say you can do it without that, and some people have. There's varying levels of OCD too. But in my experience and the people that I know, cognitive behavioral therapy has been a huge success. And
back to her level or story, she had very severe, by the time I was seeking out treatment, she couldn't breathe. She was having an anxiety attack so long that for 2 days I had to hold her. She felt like she couldn't breathe. We had to wait for doctors. You have to find the right medicine, make sure it works right. You have to start slowly, and you have to find the right doctor. So it didn't fix everything right away, but having hope, doing study, getting diagnosed, they look at how much your life is affected, and she was a very severe case. She went through the school system worked with us, and she went through the first couple years. I tell people she was just in survival mode. It was just about surviving. So, you know, you might find too that some that have it as teenagers don't mature in some ways along the same lines as everybody else because they're just busy surviving. And if they get help, then they start to learn some of the other social things or whatever.
Like me, I guess in my case it's more like, whereas all my friends are like, I want to get out of the house, I want to be independent. I'm like, you know, I was, at a younger age, I was just trying to do all these things, so I'm catching up and I'm like, I don't really need to be out of the house right now, so I guess I didn't mature as fast in that way, but in some ways it makes you mature real quick.
Yeah, she might leave me soon. She is engaged. She's done really well. And she does talk about moving out. But that's all positive, wonderful things. But it didn't come at the same age it did for other kids. Yeah.
It wasn't at the same time, like 18-year-olds were going off across the country and I was like, no.
Yeah, she was still having issues. So, all right, so we talked about the brain. Now there's a lot more studies. There's some good books out there. Don't believe everything you read. Read lots so you can make educated decisions. But and not every doctor or therapist understands and knows the studies. That's why I say if you can get a therapist that specializes in OCD. Also, I will mention, I'll have to find the information, but I went to the National Foundation for OCD. I forget if that's the actual word for it, online. That's how I found our good therapists that specialize. They're listed on their sites. We had to travel for one was like 45 minutes away, but it's worth it. All right, so we're gonna stop now and see what the next step should be.
Bye.